Hi, ladies. In my last video, we talked about the 5 mistakes I made as a young wife. And in this video, I'm going to tell you how I fixed those mistakes. And I'm going to tell you what I did differently. So, number one, I was, as a young wife who was not a Christian, I was impatient. And now I do my best to be patient around my children and, more importantly, around my husband. So, please don't assume that I am teaching gentle parenting here because I'm not. I'm actually going to do a video on how to biblically discipline children. And so I'm not saying that I don't discipline them. I'm not saying that there are no consequences for bad behavior. What I am saying is that I do try to carry myself in a loving, patient way around my children and my husband because they are gifts from God that He gave to me for me to steward them properly. Okay, so instead of impatience, I now try to practice patience. Number two, in my last video, I told you that I was a complainer. I was always complaining about things I wanted. And now, as a godly woman, I practice the opposite of complaining, which is gratitude. Okay, gratitude is the opposite of complaining. You cannot have a grateful heart and a complaining heart at the same time. Gratitude really, when you begin to practice it truthfully, when you really begin to practice gratitude, you will find that there is no room in your heart for complaints because they cannot coexist. Either you're grateful to God for everything He has given you, for His blessings and His mercy and His love, or you're complaining, and both cannot fit in at the same time. So I started to practice gratitude, not in the way that the world does it, not in the way that the new age people will tell you to practice gratitude. It's not an affirmation and it's not manifestation. It is truly a heart posture where I wake up every day thanking God for His mercies, for His love, for the shelter He has given me, for everything that His hand has placed in my life. I have a heart of gratitude. Number three, I used to live in fear. As a young woman, I spent years battling anxiety. Some of it I couldn't help, some of it I could. Some of it was my own doing because I was constantly stressing out about things that I thought I wanted and wasn't going to get. So now, as a Christian woman, I practice walking in faith. You cannot walk in faith and live in fear at the same time. Those two will cancel each other out. And notice also that walking in faith includes a verb. Walking is an action. And when you become a Christian, you will realize that living in faith is also an action. You cannot expect God to just drop things for you from the heavens. Although He could, although He does have that power, but He requires us to take action in faith. That's actually how we evidence our faith. Faith is not just something we feel that stays stored up in our heart. Faith is demonstrated when we walk in obedience to God's commands. Okay, so now instead of living in fear, I walk in faith. I take action. I do what I'm supposed to do, but I wait on the Lord knowing that He is going to provide what I need when He deems it the right time. Number four, I was a woman who always had to be in control. I had a list of things I wanted. I had a list of timelines for those things. I believed I could control when I would get certain things. And I'm not saying that planning is bad. I'm not saying that you shouldn't plan goals. If you and your husband want to buy a house, set a goal for yourself. Set a realistic goal where, okay, we're going to save this much money. We're not going to go out to eat. We're going to cook at home. We're not going to go on fancy vacations. Have a list of things you can cut back on and save a certain amount of money per month and save up for your home. That's walking in faith. You're working hard, you're being a good steward, and you're believing that God is going to provide for your needs when He deems fit. And so I'm not saying that planning is bad, but what I'm saying is I was planning to For me, it was more than planning. It was, I really was trying to be in control. I felt safe being in control. A lot of people, especially a lot of women that I know, we struggle with letting go of control. I think it's part of our sin nature that we want to be in control. We want to control how our kids come out. We want to control, a lot of things about our marriage. Even we try to control sometimes even our husbands. We try to use our emotions to manipulate them. That is evil. And I am a new creation in Christ. I don't want to live like other women do. I don't want to do what other women do. I want to do the opposite of trying to be in control. And so, what is that? That is full surrender. As a Christian woman, I live daily in full surrender to God. I do what He's asked of me. I wake up, I do what I know I need to do. But for the things that I cannot be in charge of, that are beyond my control, and really everything is beyond my control, I have learned to fully surrender to God. I have learned to just fully walk blindly in faith, knowing, trusting that He is going to give me what He is going to give me when He wants to. And so that's the opposite of trying to be in control, is to surrender. Surrender your children to the Lord. Surrender your husband to the Lord. Surrender your marriage to the Lord. Surrender your finances to the Lord. Surrender all that you are to the Lord, because He's in charge of everything. And so let me give you an example of what that looks like. I have surrendered my kids to the Lord. And this is what I mean by that. Does that mean that I don't feed them? That I wake up and just say, God, you take care of them. I'm not going to feed them. You can drop the manna from the sky for them. No, I know that it is my job as a parent to wake up and look after them. Their needs have to be met, and their needs have to be met by me because I'm their mother. I make sure they're fed. I make sure they're clean. I make sure their emotional, physical, all of their needs are met. Okay, as a mother. But there were things that I was trying to control about my children. I was scared, like many Christian mothers are. I was scared of a lot of things: their health, their the influences, their mind, their hearts. And the biggest fear as a mother, I can share with you right now, the biggest fear that I have as a Christian mother, and I think almost every single Christian woman I've met shares this fear with me. I am afraid. What? Well, I've surrendered it, so I guess I can say I was afraid that my kids would grow up and leave God. That was my biggest fear when I became a Christian. What if my children don't serve the Lord? What if my generations don't serve the Lord? What if they become atheists or Buddhists or whatever? What if they just fall into a deception and don't serve the God of the Bible, who is the only one true God? And so now I've surrendered that to the Lord. I've said, look, Heidi, you're not in control of this. I obey His word. I teach and train my children in His ways. I read them the Bible. I pray for them. I pray with them. I teach them. I love them. I serve them. I make sure all their needs are taken care of. I do all that I'm supposed to do biblically. But I am not the Holy Spirit. I cannot convert my children's hearts. I cannot bear witness of the truth of His word. I can teach it to them. I can give them my personal testimony. I can live out a life in service to Christ so they can see what that looks like. But I cannot convict their hearts. I cannot preserve their hearts. Only God can do that. So I have fully surrendered that to Him, knowing that He is good, that He is merciful, that He rewards obedience, and that He knows all things, and that His will is perfect because He is sovereign and He is good. So that's what surrender looks like. I still do my part. I do what I'm supposed to do. I don't use surrender as an excuse to not do what I'm obligated to do, but from a place of, okay, Lord, I've done what you've asked of me. The rest is yours. That's your job. I cannot do that. I'm not in control. I leave it in your hands. That's what surrender looks like. And number 5, I stopped treating my marriage as a partnership, because it is not a partnership, and you will not find anywhere in the Bible where you are commanded to treat your marriage as a partnership. If anything, if I could think of any example to give you of how I treat my marriage, it is as a triangle. And I hope you can see this. But this is a triangle with God at the top and husband and wife. Okay. I consider my marriage a trilateral covenant. That's how I treat it now after becoming a Christian woman. It is a trilateral covenant when where husband and wife made a covenant to each other, but more importantly, we made a covenant before God. Okay? God rules my marriage. I submit first to God and to his word, his commands. Then I, as the wife, sorry, I'm over here. I, as the wife, submit to my husband because that's what God asked of me. So my marriage is not for me. It is not for my happiness, although it does make me very, very happy. Um, there are benefits to marriage. There are emotional and a lot of benefits to marriage. But Christian women shouldn't think of marriage as how do I benefit? How does this meet my needs? How does this make me happy? How are my emotional and physical and financial needs met? No, marriage is a trilateral covenant. I made it first to God, and then we made it to each other, and we both submit to God, and then I submit to Him. A godly wife should submit to a godly man because that's how God commanded it. And so my marriage is a covenant, first and foremost, and it's a trilateral covenant because husband and wife made a covenant to each other, but we also made a covenant to God. And so I can make another video about that if you're interested. And for now, I just wanted to teach you that instead of impatience, practice patience. Instead of complaining, practice gratitude. Instead of living in fear, walk in faith. That is an action. Instead of trying to be in control, fully surrender all things to the one who is in control. And instead of treating your marriage as a partnership, treat it as a trilateral covenant where you choose a godly man to marry and then submit to that godly man's leadership and covering. Until next time, ladies, may God bless you.